There we go. Hello everybody and welcome to the recap of our third live coding session of last Friday. We did a lot of things. We had about an hour and a half in which we had a live session and we went through the second part of our wireframes. I'm glad to say that we finished our wireframes, so that's a big achievement. It was lots of fun. People on the chat, Martin Klaus in particular, good on you. So let's walk through what we did. First of all, on my website buildfunthings.com, I have placed a recap which already talks about everything that we did. On GitLab, in the repository, you can find a new tag for the version that we built. It's live coding 003. And it should help you with the diff between the second version and the current version. We did a lot of cool things, but first let's just take a look at the end result. If you remember, after live coding session 2, we had a login form and we could create a game and we would be asked one question and that was it. So now you can still log in. Enter the same create game page, and as you can see we have now the possibility to ask many questions. We added 3 possible questions, so it's kind of repetitive, but what you see is that there's question 1 of 5 in this case. The question, the possible answers, and the game state, which we will get back to in a little bit, is printed below for easy debugging. So let's answer the questions. We speak Dutch, as you can see. You click it and then after 2 seconds it goes to the next question, which currently is the same question. But now you see a new question from the database. What city is in the Netherlands? Well, let's answer it incorrectly, just to be fun. You see it will take the response, wait 2 seconds and then go to the next question. It's kind of repetitive now because there's not a lot of choices. And in the end, after 5 rounds, it will tell you you answered 4 correctly, 1 incorrectly, so I win. And we can create a new game and go through the entire process. There's some really cool things going on here. Let's start with the where we left off last time, create game, and it enters the ask question view. So if we go to the views and we go to ask question, you see that it now subscribes not only to the question, but also to the answer state and the game state. We figured out that the naming is not very good, but for now it will do. The answer state basically says if it was correct or incorrect, and the game state has things like has the round, max round, correct or incorrect answers, and which is printed on the bottom. So for now you see the question, the round versus max rounds, which is the top part. Question itself did not change. The answers, however, we did change. And the big change here, if you remember from the second time, click the button and it would have a pop-up saying, hey, this is correct or incorrect. It's obviously bad design because you can just go and look in the source and you will find the correct answer, so you can cheat quite easily. So we changed it and we said when you do a click, the UI will do a dispatch and will submit the answer for a particular question with the given ID of the answer. So what it will do when you click it, and for instance this question is ID 100, and so we will ask the backend, hey server, I have question 100 and I've been provided answer 2, is this correct or not? And that way we can have a cheat-free GUI. Obviously there's some trade-offs there because it will have a lot of, if it's a popular game, it will have a lot of interactions. So, but for now it works and it's fine. But what it does, when we go to the events, submit answer is right here. There we go. And submit answer is quite nice. It's a effects-driven event handler. So if you remember from the first talk on reframe, and probably did I put it here? No. Live coding recap 2. If you remember, I had this nice diagram. It says the effects-driven event handler is a handler which basically describes an event that has to happen after the event is handled itself. So for instance, you handle your event and you want to dispatch another event handler as a side effect to what you are doing. And that's what we're doing with the submit answer. We're basically saying, given the database, we look at what is the correct answer, is it correct, we grab the current state from the database, and then we say, given the database that is currently in the context, change the answer state to either correct, incorrect, or unknown, depending on the correctness of the answer that was given, and associate the number of correct or incorrect answers in the game state. So how many have you answered correctly or incorrectly up to now? Associate that with the new state, which is an increment of the previous value. And so it will say, if you answer a question correctly, it will increase the number of correct answers you've given. So there will be one atomic action, so it will always be good. Obviously, when you want to dispatch to a remote service, we would actually do a dispatch here, an HTTP handler dispatch, and then based on that answer, do these type of actions. But for now, we do it in our little backend ourselves. And then we use something which is a built-in effects handler, and that's called dispatch later, and it allows us to queue new events to be triggered after a certain time. So once this is all done, it will pass back to reframe, and reframe will say, I have a dispatch later handler, and that will trigger in 2000 milliseconds a dispatch either of next question, because we did not enter the end of the round, or it will dispatch the switch of the scene, the page, to the end game scene, which the hey, you win or you lose question. So that's basically the entire event drivenness of the ask question page, which is a very nice decoupling of the event logic. Is there the next question itself is also quite nice. Thanks to Martin, we have a very nice clean solution to get a question from our database. The database itself has grown substantially. At the end of number 2, we had a name and active page, and now we have a lot of data. We have a game state, where you are in the game and how many answers you have correct or incorrect. The active page, the answer state, which should actually be transported to the game state itself. And we have a database of questions. We have this because we don't have a backend service yet. We will do that next week, or this coming Friday. So we have 3 questions that can be asked. And what we want is whenever we go to a next page, we will have a different random question. So there's no logic to the game. So you cannot anticipate the answers. And we do that by calling a rand end, which takes a collection itself and will return a random value from that collection, which is a really nice feature. So the next question will just say, take a random question from database, grab the current round, and then associate the DB associate the number of rounds with the increase of the number of rounds, reset the answer state, and make the current question that random question that we pulled out of the database. And that means that we end up with the logic that we have here right now. And apart from that, we did not have to make a lot of changes. Figuring out the way it works was more work than anticipated, but for that there's not a lot of changes to the entire program itself. So we are quite finished with the wireframing. Next week we will go and add a backend service. We will use Component and Composure API to create a RESTful web service that will just provide us with questions, and then we can add features to it like high score tracking and maybe challenging a friend, something like those type of features, which will be quite nice. If you're following along, you can just go into the trivia game itself and see all the diffs and apply them. Yes, of course, we made a very impressive style sheet which does the red and blue thing, red and green answer state. The changes were not a lot. You can see the nice conciseness of the closure code. So for now it is all good. Next week we will do the backend service, and then we will have a fully interactive game. I'm thinking about adding it to a Heroku instance as well, and to show that off, perhaps even with the entire delivery pipeline and that you can get from the GitLab setup. We will see that Friday. We will first start with just a basic answer and question, a question and answer interface, and that should keep us busy next week. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are still following along. If you like it, subscribe to the channel. Also press the big thumbs up below. Feel free to comment or ask any questions. And I will see you Friday, 10 a.m. Central Eastern Time. Central European Time Eastern. Hear me. So Central European Time. And we will have lots of fun again. Join the chat. Make it a very comfortable place. And I will see you next week.